The sun hovered low over the dry Texas horizon, bathing the ranch in a copper haze. Dust clung to everything: skin, boots, even memories. Beau Latham stepped out of his faded green pickup and looked around the place he swore he'd never come back to. Deadstone rodeo grounds. It still smelled like sunburnt leather, diesel, and ghosts. It had been 18 years since the day Reuben Rowen, Beau's father, was trampled to death in this very arena. They called it an accident. Said the horse went wild. But Beau remembered the look in that animal's eyes. It wasn't panic. It was something else. The old wood bleachers groaned under the weight of familiar strangers. Cowboys in starched shirts and worn boots, silent under wide brims. Beau could feel their eyes on him, the whispers behind the toothpicks in their mouths. No one waved. No one smiled. But everyone remembered. He wasn't just some cowboy walking into a horse auction. He was the son of the man who died in the dirt. Beau adjusted his hat and walked toward the auction pen. His heart beat steady, but slow, not with nerves, but with the heavy rhythm of returning to unfinished business. Then the loudspeaker crackled. Next up, Lot 42. Quarter horse stallion, bay with white star. 5 years old. Solid build, calm temperament. Name's Coal Dust. The name hit him in the chest. Beau's boots stopped cold. He turned his eyes to the gate, just as a handler led the horse out into the arena. And there he was, a magnificent bay quarter horse, sleek and strong, the late afternoon sun sliding across his coat like oil on iron. He moved like power restrained, every muscle tense beneath the skin, his hooves pressing into the sand with careful authority. That white star blaze on his face shined like a badge. But Beau didn't need a pedigree to know what he was looking at. Coal Dust was Diablo's son. Diablo, the horse that killed Reuben Rowen. A tremor rippled through the stands. The old-timers shifted. Some leaned back like they wanted to be further away. Others leaned in, eyes narrowed. They all recognized something too. Something dangerous. Something that shouldn't have been back. Beau didn't speak. He just raised his hand. 5,000, he said flatly. A hush fell over the entire place. The auctioneer blinked. 5,000. We got 5. Do I hear 550? Silence. 5,000 going once, going twice. Sold. To the man in the brown hat. Beau exhaled, jaw clenched tight. It was done. He didn't know why, not fully. Maybe he needed to face something. Maybe he needed to find out what really happened. All he knew was that Coal Dust was more than just a horse. He was the last link to the day everything changed. The handler met Beau at the edge of the pen. "You sure about this one?" he asked, voice low. "He ain't been easy. Lot of fire in him. Folks say he's got his daddy's spirit." Beau took the reins, meeting the animal's dark, knowing eyes. "That's exactly what I'm counting on," he muttered. Coal Dust didn't fight, didn't flinch, just stared at him, long and hard, like he'd been waiting. That night, Beau stayed in an old trailer just off the fairgrounds. Coal Dust was tied outside, quiet under the stars. Beau sat at the small table, fingers tracing the edge of a photo, one of the few he had left. In it, a 12-year-old Beau rode Diablo bareback, grinning like a fool, while Reuben stood beside them, hand on his son's shoulder. He hadn't looked at that picture in years. He didn't want to remember the warmth, just the truth. A knock on the trailer door snapped him out of it. It was late, real late. Whoever it was, wasn't here by accident. Beau stood up slow, opened the door. A woman stood on the steps, silver-streaked hair in a braid, boots caked with dust, eyes that had seen too much and said too little. "Name's Maeve Ellison," she said. "I worked for your father, and I know something about that horse you bought today." Beau stared, not speaking. Maeve hesitated, then added, "There's a reason he died that day. And it wasn't the horse's fault." Beau stepped aside, leaving the trailer door open just wide enough for Maeve Ellison to walk in. She entered slowly, like someone stepping into a place they swore they'd never return to. Her eyes scanned the small space, finally landing on the old photo of Reuben and Beau resting on the table. She didn't reach for it. She just stared. Beau remained standing, arms crossed tight, jaw clenched. He didn't ask questions. He was done begging for answers that no one ever wanted to give. He knew someone was trying to shut him up, Maeve said, voice low and steady. "Your daddy. He was digging into things he shouldn't have. Horse papers, ownership transfers, names scratched out on contracts. And all of it led back to that horse." She looked up at him. "Diablo wasn't an accident, Beau. He was a warning." A chill ran up Beau's spine. For years, he had forced himself to believe it was just a freak incident, a bad moment. But now, hearing the words said out loud, it hit different. If Diablo didn't kill Reuben out of fear, who made him do it? Maeve pulled out a weathered leather folder and slid it across the table. Inside were folded documents and a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. "He gave me these in case something ever happened to him," she said. "I was supposed to give them to you, but I got scared. There are people in this town who pretend none of this ever happened. People who smile when they see you and lie through their teeth." Beau opened the folder carefully. Names, dates, horse bloodlines. And one name kept showing up, Samuel Greaves. That name punched a hole in Beau's stomach. Samuel Greaves had run the Deadstone auctions for decades. Church deacon, town hero, and the man Reuben Rowen once called a fraud in private. My dad used to say Greaves was falsifying pedigrees, selling mixed stock horses as pure-blooded quarter horses. Beau looked up. Was Diablo one of them? Maeve didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence said more than any confession could. If Diablo was a ticking time bomb made from lies, then coal dust might be the last living piece of that buried truth. Outside, coal dust let out a sharp, piercing whinny. Beau turned toward the window, heart kicking in his chest. The stallion was restless beneath the moonlight, pacing, his muscles coiled like wire. Something had stirred him. Not fear, not quite. Something closer to instinct. Alertness. Like he knew something was coming. And before dawn, Beau would learn he wasn't the only one looking for answers. Beau didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on the flickering flame of a half-burned candle. The documents Maeve brought lay spread out before him. Dates, initials, cash transactions written in rushed handwriting. A quiet storm brewed behind his eyes. The more he read, the more it felt like he'd stepped into a lie that had outlived the man who first uncovered it. His father hadn't died because of a wild horse. He'd been silenced. And now Beau was holding the very proof that could tear this town's history in half. The sun was just beginning to bleed through the clouds when a rusted truck pulled up outside. Maeve peeked through the blinds. Her face tensed. "Stay quiet," she whispered. Beau reached for the folder, but it was too late. A knock hit the trailer door, loud and slow, too casual to be friendly. When he opened it, a man in a tan blazer stood on the steps, smiling like he'd just caught a fish with bare hands. "Morning," he said. "Name's Ellis Pike. I work with Mr. Greaves." He didn't wait for an invite. His eyes scanned the inside. "We heard you bought yourself a horse." Beau's jaw tightened. "I did." Ellis grinned wider. "Hell of a horse. Greaves raised him himself, you know. Son of Diablo. Pure as they come. Mean streak, though. Like his daddy." He stepped a little closer. "Mr. Greaves asked me to drop by, see if everything's going smooth." Man like you comes back after all this time, raises a few questions. Beau didn't move. I'm just here to ride, he lied. Pike gave a small chuckle. Sure you are. Then he tapped the brim of his hat, turned, and walked off like he owned the dust beneath his boots. After he left, Maeve locked the door. He's not just a messenger, Beau. He's the kind of man who burns barns in the middle of the night and calls it a lightning strike. Greaves knows you're digging. Beau turned to coal dust outside. The horse was still restless, but not afraid. Like he knew where this was heading. Then it's time we dig deeper, Beau said, picking up the sealed envelope from the folder. Let's see what my father was really afraid of. Inside the envelope was a photograph, grainy, taken in secret. It showed Greaves, much younger, standing beside a fenced paddock with another man Beau didn't recognize. But the horse inside the pen had that same white blaze, the same eyes. And it wasn't Diablo. It was another horse entirely. The caption on the back of the photo read, "This isn't the original Diablo." Greaves switched him. Beau held the photo in his hand like it might catch fire. The handwriting on the back was unmistakably his father's, hard-pressed and jagged, like every word had been carved out of fear. "This isn't the original Diablo." Greaves switched him. That line turned everything upside down. It wasn't just fraud. It was deception deep enough to kill over. Beau looked at Maeve, who stared at the photo with wide, silent eyes. "Why would Greaves swap the horse?" he asked, though the answer already burned in his gut. Money. Reputation. Power. In a town like Deadstone, all three were carved into the same stone. Maeve finally spoke. "I think your dad found out the horse Greaves sold as Diablo wasn't the one he trained. Your father used to say Diablo had a calm soul. Almost human. He'd raised him from a foal. But the one that killed him, that horse had death in his eyes." Beau remembered that, too. As a boy, he had ridden Diablo dozens of times. The horse was big, strong, but never violent. Never wild. Until that day. And now, it seemed the reason was simple, because it wasn't Diablo at all. "Coal dust," Beau whispered, glancing through the window. The stallion stood still now, not pacing, just staring toward the woods as if sensing something out of sight. If he's the real bloodline, then who's his father? Maeve shrugged. "That's the part we never figured out. Your dad was trying to track the bloodline. He said something about missing DNA samples and forged certificates. He thought Greaves was selling fake purebreds for top dollar. Dangerous stock, unstable temperaments." She paused. "And he thought someone was helping him cover it all up." Beau's stomach turned. If the wrong horses were being passed off as champion bloodlines, then every buyer, every rancher who lost control of a horse, who got injured, they were victims of something far bigger. And Reuben Rowen died trying to stop it. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a man and a horse. It was about a chain of lies that ran through the entire community. A network built on doctored lineage and silence. Coal dust wasn't just a clue, he was the last truth standing on four legs. That evening, Beau drove to the county records office. It was closed, but he had a key, an old favor cashed in from a friend of his father's who still believed the Rowens had been wronged. Inside, dust danced in the slivers of setting sun. He flipped through files, scanning bloodline registries and auction records. One file had been pulled recently, the one on Diablo. The page left behind was blank except for a stamp across the top. Removed by court order. Sealed. And someone had written one word in the corner, in red ink. Forget. The stamped word haunted Beau's thoughts as he sat behind the wheel of his truck. Forget. It wasn't just a warning, it was a command. Someone had the authority to bury the truth legally and permanently. That meant Greaves had help, and not just from hired hands like Ellis Pike. Someone inside the system had sealed Diablo's records, and that meant someone inside the courthouse had blood on their hands too. Beau gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, the silence in the cab pressing in around him like fog. Back at the trailer, Maeve was pacing outside. Coal dust stood perfectly still under the shade of the awning, watching her with eyes full of something Beau couldn't name. "You were gone too long," she said. Her voice was low, tight. "Somebody's been by. They didn't knock." She held up a torn piece of paper taped to the door. On it, someone had scrawled 6 words in rushed handwriting: "Stop digging or he pays next." Beau didn't need to ask who he was. The weight of coal dust's gaze told him everything. They couldn't stay here. Not anymore. That night, they loaded up and drove an hour out of town to an old friend's ranch, someone Beau hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Willard Cade, a former rodeo man turned cattle broker, had once been Reuben's closest ally. Beau remembered the two of them riding together, building fences side by side, talking late into the night like brothers. If anyone would help, it was Willard. The Cade ranch looked tired: overgrown grass, rusted gates, paint peeling from the barn. Willard met them at the door, grayer and heavier than Beau remembered, but the same sharp eyes. "You're stirring up ghosts, boy," he said without even a hello. "And around here, ghosts don't stay dead long." Beau explained everything, from the horse swap to the sealed records. Willard listened, stone-faced, arms crossed, until Beau pulled out the photo of Greaves with the wrong Diablo. That's when Willard's expression changed. His eyes darted to Maeve, then to coal dust in the trailer behind the truck. "You brought that animal here?" he asked, voice low. "You don't know what that horse means." Beau frowned. "He's not the killer they made him out to be." Willard stepped back. "No, but they'll make him into one again if it suits him." He looked over his shoulder, then leaned in. "Listen to me. If you've got anything left of your father's notes, now's the time to burn it. Greaves is already cleaning house. He's not gonna let that bloodline surface." Beau didn't answer. But in his gut, he knew something had just shifted. Beau couldn't sleep that night. Not with Willard's words still echoing in his mind. "They'll make him into a killer again if it suits him." He sat on the porch of the old ranch house, watching the stars blink above the dark hills. Coal dust stood silently near the corral, head low, unmoving, as if he too sensed the walls closing in. The truth wasn't just dangerous, it was inconvenient for powerful men. And men like Greaves didn't leave loose ends alive. Inside the barn, Maeve sorted through the rest of Reuben's files. She'd found an old notebook Beau hadn't seen before, wedged between 2 feed sacks. The pages were brittle, written in his father's tight, meticulous script. In the margins, names were circled. Not just Greaves, but Willard Cade. Maeve looked up, heart sinking. She hesitated, then brought the notebook to Beau. "I don't know what this means," she said quietly. "But your father, he thought Willard was part of it. At least in the beginning." Beau stared at the notebook in disbelief. Could it be true? Willard had always stood by his father's side, or so he thought. But as he flipped through the pages, the writing told a different story. Mentions of altered DNA results, private deals with buyers, and hidden foals born off record, all traced back to men Reuben had trusted, including Willard. Maybe the Cade Ranch wasn't a safe house. Maybe it was just a quieter place to disappear. That evening, when Beau confronted him, Willard didn't deny it. Not fully. "We were all part of it," he admitted, eyes tired. "Greaves was the ringleader, yeah. But Reuben, he got in too deep trying to expose it. You think he died because of one horse? Hell no. He died because he wouldn't let it go." Beau's hands clenched at his sides. "You stood there and watched them bury him." Willard looked away. "And I've lived with that every damn day since." Beau walked out without another word. He couldn't trust anyone now. Not even the people who claimed to love his father. Everyone had dirt on their hands. And coal dust? That horse wasn't just a relic of Reuben's past. He was living proof of everything they tried to erase. That made him a target. And so was Beau. As the night deepened, headlights appeared far down the dirt road, slow, deliberate, cutting through the dark like a blade. Beau didn't need to ask who it was. They had found him. The headlights didn't turn. They crept forward like a slow-moving storm, sweeping dust in long spirals across the gravel drive. Beau stepped off the porch, instinctively placing himself between the barn and the road. Coal dust stood silent in the dark, his massive frame barely visible except for the faint gleam of his white star blaze. The engine idled as two shadowy figures stepped out. Beau didn't recognize their faces, but their body language was clear. They weren't here to talk. Maeve appeared beside him, shotgun in hand. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked under her breath. Beau nodded once. "They came to make us afraid," he said. "I'm done running." One of the men approached slowly, hands out, like he was trying to look calm. "Evening," he said, voice flat. "Mr. Greaves wants the horse. You can walk away clean if you let him go." "This ain't about you, Latham." Beau laughed bitterly. "You think I believe that? That horse is the reason my father died. He's the only piece of truth left." The second man stepped forward, less polite. "You don't understand. That bloodline was never meant to surface. You dig up bones, you better be ready for the smell." Beau's fists clenched. Every word they said confirmed what he already knew. Coal dust wasn't just a horse. He was evidence. Breathing proof of falsified breeding, fraud, maybe worse. "You've buried enough," Beau said. "Not this time." The men exchanged a glance. Then, without another word, they turned and walked back to the truck. They weren't here to kill. Not yet. They were here to warn. That night, Beau moved coal dust into the back pasture behind the barn and set tripwires across the entry path. He didn't trust the law. Not in Deadstone. He only trusted instinct now, and instinct said this was far from over. Maeve stood by him through the night, sitting in a folding chair with a thermos of black coffee and that old shotgun resting in her lap. She didn't ask what the next move was. She already knew. At dawn, Beau opened the notebook again. His father had marked something near the last pages, a location. GPS coordinates. They weren't far. About 40 minutes west, out near the old collapsed mine shafts. Beside it, Reuben had written a single line, original bloodline buried where it began. Beau felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Whatever lay out there was the final piece his father had died trying to protect. The sky was a dull gray when Beau turned onto the abandoned mining road. The dirt path twisted through hills choked with brush and silence. It felt like driving into another century. Coal dust stood in the trailer behind his truck, calm but alert, as if sensing that whatever lay ahead would change everything. Maeve rode in the passenger seat, clutching Reuben's notebook like scripture. Neither of them spoke. The deeper they drove, the heavier the air became, thick with history, dust, and the scent of something long buried. They reached the spot just before noon. Nothing marked it, no signpost, no fence. Just a collapsed shack half swallowed by the earth and a rusted weather vane spinning in slow, creaky circles. "This is it," Maeve whispered. Beau stepped out, boots crunching dry grass, eyes scanning for anything familiar. He walked toward the mine opening, or what remained of it, now mostly filled in, but still accessible through a narrow gap in the rock. Coal dust let out a low, uneasy breath from the trailer. Inside the old shaft, the air was cool and damp. The flashlight beam danced across broken timbers and rusted equipment until Beau found it, an old feed crate sealed shut with rusted nails. He pried it open carefully, heart pounding. Inside, wrapped in tarps and old cloth, were 3 items: a set of blood test results, a reel of 8mm film, and a VHS tape labeled in his father's handwriting, "Proof of Switch, 1993. For a long moment, Beau didn't move. He was holding the final piece. The real truth. And maybe, the evidence that could destroy Greaves. He brought the box out into the daylight. Maeve stared in disbelief. "Your father kept it here. Away from everyone. Even me." Beau felt something shift in his chest, a bittersweet ache. His father hadn't just died searching for the truth. He'd found it, and trusted Beau, somehow, to finish what he started. Coal dust stomped once in the trailer, as if confirming it. But the silence didn't last. From the hill above, an engine roared to life. A second truck had followed them. Black, no plates. 2 men inside. The same ones from the night before. This time, they weren't here to talk. They weren't even hiding anymore. One of them stepped out, rifle slung casually in hand. "You should have stayed gone, Latham," he shouted. "Now you'll die like your father did, with the truth in your hands and nowhere left to take it." Beau looked at Maeve, then at the box, then at the horse. And for the first time, he didn't feel afraid. Beau didn't flinch. Not when the rifle was raised. Not even when the man took a slow step down the hill, boots sinking into the dry earth. Coal dust shifted in the trailer, sensing danger, his muscles tightening like wire. Maeve stood behind Beau, clutching the box of evidence tight against her chest. The air buzzed with tension, but Beau stayed still, calm, centered, like the silence before a thunderstorm. He wasn't just protecting himself. He was guarding the truth his father had buried for nearly 2 decades. "You think that box means anything?" the man called out. "No one's going to see it. You won't even make it back to the highway." Beau stepped forward slowly, hands loose at his sides. "You're wrong," he said, voice steady. "I'm not here to run. I'm not here to hide. You've spent your life covering up lies, killing anyone who got too close. But you made one mistake," he pointed toward the trailer. "You let the bloodline live." The man raised the rifle slightly, but hesitated. Maeve's voice broke the standoff. "We've already sent copies. Reuben kept more than one. Lawyers, journalists, hell, even the sheriff got a piece. It was a bluff. A dangerous one. But she said it like gospel." The gunman hesitated again, shifting his weight. Something in his stance changed, not fear, but uncertainty. "You're bluffing," he muttered. But even he didn't sound sure anymore. The second man in the truck stayed seated, watching from behind the windshield, hands clenched on the steering wheel like he was praying for this to be over. Beau took another step forward. "You pull that trigger, and everything your boss tried to hide becomes the headline tomorrow morning." He wasn't bluffing anymore. In his truck's glove compartment, he had a flash drive. A digital copy of every document in the box. All it would take was one click, and the story would be out. "Walk away," he said, "and tell Greaves we're done being afraid." For a moment, no one moved. Then the man lowered the rifle. Without a word, he turned back toward the truck. Gravel kicked up under his boots as he climbed in, slammed the door, and the engine roared back to life. They drove off, disappearing into the dust, but the threat lingered behind them like smoke after a fire. Maeve let out the breath she'd been holding. Beau walked to the trailer and looked coal dust in the eye. The horse stared back, unblinking. "He tried to erase you," Beau whispered. "But you're still here. And now, the world would know why." The next morning, Beau stood at the edge of the pasture behind Maeve's house, watching coal dust move freely for the first time in weeks. The stallion trotted across the open field, strong, proud, unafraid, the weight of buried history finally lifted from his back. The sun rose behind him, washing everything in gold, and for the first time in years, Beau felt like he could breathe. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, like the land itself was letting go. Maeve stepped out with 2 mugs of coffee and handed one to him. "You did it," she said softly. Beau shook his head. "No, we did. My dad did. He never stopped fighting, not even after they tried to silence him." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the old photograph of Reuben, smiling beside the real Diablo. It had survived fire, lies, and time. And now it would tell the truth. The article had already gone out that morning. Files, photos, and a full timeline published by a regional journalist Beau had trusted just enough. The fallout was immediate. Samuel Greaves had vanished by sunrise. His office had been cleared out overnight. Federal agents were circling Deadstone, digging through records and following the money trail Reuben had uncovered all those years ago. Whispers of lawsuits, indictments, and revoked licenses filled the town. And just like that, the lie that had propped up a legacy came crashing down. Not everyone believed it, of course. Some folks clung to the myth. But enough believed. Enough saw the proof. And that was all Beau needed. Later that week, Beau drove coal dust to the old rodeo grounds. The same place where his father had died. The gates were closed, rusted, forgotten, but he opened them anyway. With no crowd, no noise, no fear, he stepped into the center of the arena and let the stallion run. Coal dust circled the ring, kicking up dirt and memories, and in that moment, Beau saw it clearly. This wasn't just a horse. He was a symbol of what survives when men try to bury truth with violence. When the horse finally slowed, Beau stepped forward and laid a hand on his neck. "We made it, old boy," he said quietly. "We brought him home." The wind picked up gently, brushing past him like a familiar voice, like Reuben was still there, watching, proud. Maybe he always had been. Beau looked out over the empty stands and smiled. Some stories don't die. Some truths don't stay buried. And some bloodlines were born to outrun the lies.